Well, this is a much better picture than the last time we got a big snow. It's holding up great. Well, we officially made it through several winter storms here so far here in February, and the greenhouse has been holding up so much better than it was initially. So if you have been following along, you'll know that I've had some struggles with this build. This is a 48-foot by 18-foot hoop house or greenhouse. And in this video, I just wanted to go through and talk about some of the most frequently asked questions and comments and address a lot of those things that have been asked or mentioned a lot throughout the last few videos, as well as go through everything that I will do differently with this or some add-ons that I will make when we get into the warmer times. So if you're looking to build a hoop house, whether small or big, this probably will help you out and just kind of show you what works and what doesn't work. And if you haven't checked out my previous videos, I have a start to finish kind of build on this from planning to where we're at today. I'll put a link up in the eye there in the upper right hand corner on your screen. So let's go ahead and take a look at how well we're holding up against snow and what I'll do differently in the future. So when I started to build this, the first thing that people mentioned and suggested to me was that you need to have some type of center support. So these are 1-inch PVC conduit, electrical conduit, and the hoops themselves, with any, an inch or two of snow or more on the top there, they will not hold the weight of that snow, and they'll collapse in, as we all saw. I wasn't prepared for snow, and so I hadn't put the beam up. I was planning on doing the plastic first, so I'd have some cover and then put the beam up. I should have done it the other way around. So if you're doing a hoop house this size or any size really, I would recommend putting some type of center support all the way down the middle. In my case, I did 2x6s. They rest on support down there, and then these are 4x4 posts with supports on each side. I will also put some 2x4s down these posts right here to help support the 2x6 beams. I haven't done that yet, but then the beam rests on this side. I also put a 2x6 across from these two 2x4s to really support that beam and tie it together. So as you can see, we have a pretty decent snow load on here right now. And also what I found from when it heats up in here during the day and sunny days, we get a lot of ice buildup. So this is all covered in ice, and that actually adds quite a bit of weight to the plastic also. But all you have to do, so a lot of people have suggested I put further supports on the sides here. I may do that if I build some tables or something along the sides. I plan on putting some tables along here. I may add a couple supports as part of those tables. I think that would be fine. But actually what happens is once this builds up a decent amount of weight, these actually flex in just a little bit, and all the snow falls off anyway, and then it springs right back. So right now there's probably about 3 or 4 inches of snow up there. We plan on getting another 3 to 5 today, and I don't see any issue with snow load. So this beam down the center really does the job. It really makes this thing super strong, and also supports these end walls and makes those very rigid as well. I also just used a couple scrap pieces of wood to tie the wall into the actual runners that go down the sides as well, and that just helps the stability of the wall. And I also added these pipes, these conduit stakes really, that go 2 feet into the ground, and then they are tied to this 2x4. They go right through the bottom of the sill of that one. And so that, I've got one on the other side behind the buckets there too. So that keeps the wall stable from kicking out or sliding on the bottom in high winds, and the beam here keeps it stable on the top. So I will also put some tie downs on the outside, as I mentioned before, from tie down to that 2x4 and going out to a stake, and then tie it onto this 2x4 and going out to a stake. So that will keep this as the highest wind load side of the greenhouse stable. You can see some of the PVC hasn't recovered from the initial bending and flexing that everything did when this whole thing caved in. There's a few little saggy spots and a few kinked spots, a few that kind of curve. So unfortunately, once this heats up, those may kind of form back into place, but I think they're just going to be a little bit weaker. With the beam though, all of the weight and structure is tied to that beam, so there's not a lot of load being put on these. Or I can just grab these poles and wiggle the whole thing off. So another thing I noticed with the snow load is if it's windy, the snow doesn't even collect on here at all. The plastic ripples and flexes and its snow just comes right off. So as soon as it warms up in here, if it's sunny, the snow just melts off in a few hours. So the one thing I would have done differently that I really can't do very well now is I've got these 3/4 inch pieces of conduit that run all the way down, and there's bolts in each one of the ribs. This is held together really well. Those bolts were perfect, but I would have run one right about where this kind of joint is right here on the wall, all the way down the side. So you can see it here. That actually, when I pulled the plastic tight, it actually pulled that wall in a little bit. And if I had that rigid support like I did here, it forces the gaps to stay equal on all the ribs, and it will force that a little bit tighter. So that's one of the things I would have done differently. And next time I put plastic on this, I may add an extra support in that location. These supports I would definitely recommend doing. They keep this side of the wall nice and tight. But what I may do is change this from a support that goes from this 2x4 straight down to my side rails here on the ground. So it'll just tie into that joint and then go up to this corner here. That will kind of tie that together and support that without these big supports coming out here onto the ground. You can see how I pinched the plastic in here. That worked really well. What I probably would have done differently is wrapped the plastic around those 2x4s one extra time. I do see, because they were cold and there was snow and ice in there, I think that the plastic is slipping through a little bit. But you know, I may have to retighten this thing up a little bit on my sidewalls once I get a decent warm day. The other thing that people asked a lot of is, how am I going to change the plastic? Well, this is supposed to be good for 4 years. So I'm figuring in 4 or 5 years, if this thing is still in good shape, we'll go ahead and put new plastic on it. And yes, I will have to pull these loose all the way around the hoop here. Or what I can do is just leave that plastic in there and just wrap the new plastic around and re-secure it on the outside of the wall with new clamps, wiggle wire or something like that. On this side, that'll be really easy because I can just pop some screws out of this paneling and still slide the plastic in between the paneling and the 2x4s there and pull it tight. So one of the #1 questions, ventilation. What are you going to do for ventilation? Well, right now I'm not worried about ventilation. It's winter. But what I will add when summertime comes is I will put a square frame in here somewhere on this side as well as this side, and I'm going to get 2 big fans that will go in there. I can also, I just screwed these windows right in. I can take those right out and just pop a screen, you know, a piece of screen right over these openings. I can just take those windows out for the entire summertime. So that would give me ventilation on this end. On this end, same thing. I don't plan on putting fans down here or anything, but what I could do is add a screen door and keep this the door open and just have the screen there, and also pop these windows out on this end. So that should give me good ventilation. I get a really good breeze off the hay fields on the opposite side of this end wall that it's going to come right through here really well. I'm also not sure how much I'm going to be growing in here year round. I may use this greenhouse primarily for fall and spring and even possibly winter growing if I can heat this efficiently with maybe an waste oil heater or something like that. I'm going to research some of that for next year. But I don't know if I'll be really growing in here in the middle of the summer. I don't think that I'll have too much issue if I grow some hot weather crops in here with the ventilation that I have. But we'll see. That might be something that I would need to adjust down the road. And so I'll keep you guys updated on that. So one of the most asked questions is, where did I get the greenhouse plastic? This is not just off the shelf Home Depot plastic. It is a greenhouse UV resistant 6mm clear greenhouse plastic. It's a pretty durable plastic. It doesn't seem to be affected by the cold. It doesn't crumple up or break like some of the other stuff, get brittle in the sun. It's guaranteed, warranted for 4 years, and for sun damage and things like that. Here in Michigan, with as much sun as we get, it'll probably last 10 years. But it seems to be pretty good. I mean, even with the ice and stuff like that on it, this plastic is really strong. So I actually got this plastic from online at greenhousemegastore.com. I've gotten a lot of our greenhouse supplies there. We will be getting more of our greenhouse supplies there. It was actually not too expensive. Shipping wasn't bad, and so I ordered that right online and had that shipped to us. So the one thing that I can say I probably would have done differently is I would have bumped up from 1 inch PVC here to 1.25 or 1.5 inches if I could have afforded it, and then bumped these runners up to 1 inch instead of 3/4. And so if I had 1.5 inch PVC for the hoops and then 1 inch for the runners that go down here, it would have added a couple $100 onto the cost. But it probably would have been a little bit more stable, a little more structure to everything. I did find that the plastic, when you put the plastic on and tighten it at the bottom, the plastic really holds the structure of these hoops. So even without the beam, it adds a lot of strength to the structure when you get that plastic on tight, because when you add weight to the top, those pipes have to flex out and the plastic is pulling against that. So the plastic actually adds a lot of structure to this, but the beam is still absolutely necessary. So another thing a lot of people said is, am I going to do a double layer of plastic? And that's a method that a lot of people use. You double up your layers of plastic, you seal it at the ends and the bottom, and then you add like a little fan or blower of some sort to blow kind of an air gap between the two. And then that adds a lot of insulation value to keep your greenhouse warm. That might be something that I do down the road. Maybe if I have the money next year, I can add another layer of plastic to this, seal it off at the ends and the bottom, and then do that for next winter. But right now I'm real happy with how it's working out. There are lots of methods to help keep heat in your greenhouse overnight that I may explore down the road, as well as some type of a furnace or burning unit in here, whether it's wood or waste oil or something like that, or storage tanks of water, an aquaponics system that has a large water mass in here that will heat up during the day and keep that heat releasing in here overnight. So there are lots of different ways to do that, and so I may explore those things down the road. Even with a single wall of plastic, when it's about 20 degrees outside, it's been up to 60 degrees in here. So it's about a 40-degree difference in here during the day, but at nighttime, without any heat mass in here, it drops way down. A lot of people have asked about rocket mass stoves. I'm not a huge rocket mass heater person. They're great. There's a lot involved in building a rocket mass heater. There's a lot of more simple ways, I think, to heat. And so although those do work very well, and that's maybe something I explore down the road, but I don't have any plans for rocket mass heaters in here. I think I would rather use water as a storage medium for as far as the heat mass. So what did this thing cost me? That's the big question I think that a lot of people have. If you're looking at getting into a greenhouse, we're going to be using this commercially to sell seedlings. That's our main purpose for this. This was a business investment to our farm. We are going to be building tables, starting seedlings, selling all the vegetables and things like that we'll produce, and start our seeds early in here. And so this is part of a business investment for us. If you go online and look at hoop houses, very similar, without the beam and all that stuff, metal frame hoop houses that are not rated for snow load and are not rated in high wind areas, for this size, you're looking at about $2,000 for a kit that includes end walls, plastic, and the frame. I can tell you that is nowhere as structurally sturdy as this. So you're still looking at reinforcements and other things to make it snow load worthy and wind worthy if you're in a windy area. What we paid for this, all the supplies, we kept track of everything, we're about $658. That includes the tape that we had to put on the PVC to keep the PVC pipe separated from the plastic, because this PVC will actually off-gas a chlorine. what is PVC? Polyvinyl chloride, I think it is. And so there's a chlorine in there that actually leaks or off gases from this, and it'll degrade the plastic. So we had to put tape in between on all these pipes to keep that separation. So adding that cost, adding the cost of the beam down the middle, all the treated lumber, the brackets, the bolts, the PVC pipe, the plastic, the whole thing was about $658. That doesn't include the wood for the end wall down here, or the paneling for the end wall down there, or the windows. That was all reclaimed material that I had available to me. I also had a lot of wood screws and brad nails and other things handy as well that I didn't purchase. So if you had to buy everything, you'd be looking at a little additional cost on that. So I'm sure there are lots of things I didn't cover. This is a long talking video. I do apologize, but I wanted to try to go through and answer a lot of questions. But if you have questions or you're looking at building a hoop house, obviously this has not gone through a full season. It hasn't gone through a full 12 months, so there'll be other things I'm sure will happen here that I'll need to make adjustments on. But as of right now, just after getting this built in the winter in Michigan, if you have any questions for me, please throw them down below. I will try to answer everyone's questions. I try to keep up on these videos for several years. So thumbs up on the video as always, guys, and subscribe if you want to follow along. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up with this greenhouse. I'd love to do wind generation out here. I'd love to do some kind of backup battery power, lights, all the installation of the tables, all the growing of everything that we're going to be doing in here. All will be on video. I'd love to have you guys tag along. Hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.